If you remember, I said engineering was doing waterfall development. Waterfall development is just a step-by-step process that says marketing writes requirements of what the product should do. Engineering takes that and translates that into features. Engineering then designs the product, either codes it or builds the hardware. They test it, and they maintain it. And this is kind of a waterfall life cycle, step by step. But if you really look at this, there's an implicit fallacy that no one ever noticed for 40 years. To write the requirements and do the design assumes on day one you know the problem or need the customer has. Well, let me say it again. Waterfall development assumes you understand the customer problem and need on day one. Now, in a large company with existing customers, existing products, existing sales channel, you know what? This might actually be true. But in most startups, all you have is the founder's vision. And what you tend to do in a startup is confuse a faith-based vision with customer facts about problems and needs. And what happens? The consequence of assuming you know the customer problem means you assume you know every possible feature to ship on day one. So therefore, you shut the door and you start implementing. And instead of just implementing a piece at a time, you actually implement every possible feature you could think about for version 1.0. The irony is that we now know somewhere between 85 and 90% of most software product features are unwanted and unneeded by customers. That's an enormous amount of waste of time and money that ends up on the floor. We now know that waterfall and product management execution on two knowns is just kind of the wrong way to approach it in a startup. Makes all the sense in the world in a large company. What we now know is most startups fail from a lack of customers than from a failure of product development. And that's really interesting. Even in Silicon Valley, where we probably take more technical risk per square inch or square foot than anywhere else in the world, we go out of business typically not because we didn't deliver a product. We go out of business because we didn't find enough customers to pay us enough money. That's a big idea. Because if you think about it, we have all these processes to manage the engineering process. Why? Because that is the biggest risk in a large company. But we had no processes to manage the customer risk. In fact, the best we could do is, in the old days, is hire a VP of sales who told you, oh, I have a great Rolodex or a great set of contacts. But we really had no formal process for searching for what customers' needs are. And in fact, we've just come up with one. And that's going to be a key part of this course. This search for the business model, this search for the truth is called customer development. And customer development really has two pieces, the search and its execution. And in this class, we're going to be talking about the first two steps, customer discovery, customer validation, the pivots that connect them. And then if you're so lucky, we actually get to execute your business model in customer creation and company building. The other piece that goes with the process in a startup is not only the customer development process, but an agile engineering process. One example is Extreme Programming, or XP, which basically is built around this idea of iteration and incremental delivery of the product. This is a big idea. It says instead of building every possible feature on day one, we're actually going to incrementally and iteratively interact with customers, test each portion of the product, and see if what we're building actually has a home outside the building. So what this really means is that for process, instead of just going to execution first, hiring product managers, doing waterfall development, or maybe even agile nowadays, we're actually going to start with a customer development process coupled with some kind of agile engineering process. Which one you pick, I use XP as an example, but it could be whatever your favorite process is. And by the way, don't only think that agile engineering, agile development is about software. Toyota and the Toyota production system actually had it for hardware decades before anybody in software ever thought about it. So you could be building products, anything from microprocessors to medical equipment to hardware, software, etc., using an iterative and incremental engineering process. And again, Once you're done with that, of course you want to manage this in a formal process, but not before you do the planning.